Hey guys, I want to welcome everybody to another episode of the Franchise Advisory Board. I've got a great guest with me today, David Stein, and we're going to get to know him a little bit and then jump right into our topic today, which is how do we unravel the secrets behind Facebook marketing? It's a powerful tool. So before we jump into the topic, let me tell you about the expert today. He's a bit of a character. He's been really working in marketing, digital marketing for years. He 30 years in marketing, 18 years as the CEO of, just forgot the name of it, my friend, the Producers Network, a boutique digital marketing group. He's the co-founder of the reason why I wanted him on this one is co-founder of Sales Chats, which is a really powerful AI-driven tool that helps do lead generation for franchise development and about any industry where you need to do lead gen. And so I thought he'd be an expert to bring on, very familiar with the Facebook marketing platform for creating leads at scale. Also, a father of two kids, an FSU grad, a son at William and Mary's, 26th anniversary coming up this week. Isn't that what you just said, Dave?
That's right. Yes. Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, of course. So congrats on that. And thanks for being our guest. Tell us more about you. Tell us a little bit about some of the new things you're doing with Sales Chats, and then let's jump into the topic.
Well, like you've mentioned, I started the Producers Network 18 years ago, and I actually got into franchising when I was working with a company called Clockwork Home Services, which is now morphed into Authority Brands. But back then in 05, 06, I actually worked with them for 6 years. That's when I first got to learn about franchise marketing, and most importantly, FranDev marketing. It went from 100 to 600 franchisees in that very short period of time. And since then, I've been working across all verticals in franchising. I've worked with well over 75 brands and run hundreds of franchise marketing and media campaigns.
Wow, that's amazing. When you said Clockwork, I was like, oh, I was just with those guys at the Authority Brands conference. But that's great. What a good connection on the Fran. So worked mostly on the FranDev side with them, or also on the unit level?
Actually, no. I actually worked. I worked with the franchisees and helped the franchisees grow their business. That was my primary. So it was more on the consumer side than what I like to call the B2B side. But my responsibilities were in both areas.
Yeah, that's a good brand to cut your teeth on, though. Good heavens.
It really was.
Cool. Well, so let's jump in. So one of the reasons why, and tell us a little bit about Sales Chats, because I think that's an interesting cross section of what we're going to discuss today about generating leads and then creating lower funnel leads through that platform.
Absolutely, Dave. So one of the things that I kind of learned working in the FranDev area is when somebody indicates that they have an interest possibly in investing in a franchise brand. While my clients have indicated sometimes it's difficult to move that individual down funnel, even get them on the phone. So we developed Sales Chats, and Sales Chats is a web application where there's an opportunity to have this instant collaboration between the prospect and the sales individual. And it's a really cool thing that we developed. We've been running it for about a year, where a prospect clicks on an ad and on Facebook, and it triggers the app. The prospect, the salesperson receives an alert that there's an opportunity to begin immediately collaborating with the prospect.
Great. And there's also, as I understand it, there's some AI-driven conversational tools that can, if the sales prospect isn't available, can just immediately engage, right?
Yeah, exactly, Dave. Yeah, a couple of things on that. First of all, we use AI to ask some initial qualifying questions. We like to say speed to qualified lead, because we can ask and we can tailor a couple qualified questions to the prospect. And once they answer those questions in the way that our client needs that kind of information, then they receive that alert to say it's time to begin that communication, instant communication with the prospect.
Yeah, I love it. You guys know my whole background, our speed to lead moniker, but this is an interesting dimension you can add on top of that. So I love what you guys are doing. The fact that you can rather than, because let's talk about Facebook leads for a minute.
Yeah.
This is a platform that if you're not using it, I'd say you're missing out. Honestly, people always ask the question, do Facebook leads work? I get to see a really interesting data perspective of how many people are using it and how many leads they're generating and how those leads are converting into opportunities. So it's definitely a place you need to spend some time and money. The challenge, though, is especially with emerging brands, this is what I'm seeing, David, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, that there can be a high volume of very top of funnel leads with Facebook. And so sometimes if you have a limited resource pool and how to follow up with those leads, you can get buried with Facebook leads and not do a good job of following up with them. So you're not getting the conversions you would want. But it's not necessarily because the platform's bad, it's because the follow-up can sometimes be weak. So this is where what you guys are building, and this is going to lead into our topic, I think is phenomenal because it eliminates some of that minutia of the initial lead follow-up, and rather than just generate a lead that might not be qualified, pre-qualify it before it becomes a real contact that you need to engage. Now you've won on both ends of the equation. You're still getting the leads through, but you're also not getting buried with the minutia. So I love what you guys are doing with Sales Chats. It's a powerful platform. But that leads into our topic. So let's talk a little bit about Facebook lead gen. One, there have been a lot of things changing. So if you don't mind, David, tell us about the landscape of Facebook lead gen and marketing and what has been changing and what are you seeing that's working in that space now?
Yeah, great question. So there's a lot of what I like to call noise going on regarding Facebook.
Mhm.
The focus of the company on their metaverse, some of the issues, some of the challenges they've had with Apple in the privacy area, and what I like to say about all of that and to talk to our clients about is the importance of basically blocking out that noise and really focusing on the power of Facebook advertising. Let's start with their platform. So there's 250 million users of Facebook, first of all. I mean, I think it's 330 million people in the United States. I mean, they're pretty much everybody on Facebook. So that's right off the bat. So this enormous universe to put your message in front of. And then in addition to that, of course, they have multiple other platforms like Instagram and WhatsApp. And I'll talk a little bit about Messenger. And WhatsApp and Messenger, I think, are a couple of the great secrets of Facebook and some real opportunities. You mentioned AI a minute ago, and there's some real opportunities on those two platforms. But before we sort of focus on that, I think the key to successful Facebook advertising really comes down to leveraging their targeting tools and targeting tools that you can upload yourself onto Facebook. So Facebook has a program called Lead Ads, and of course that's the program that you use if you're looking for somebody to fill out a form that you can drive into your CRM. And the key, I think, to make sure that you're putting your ad in front of the right people is the kind of targeting that you do. Facebook has an incredible, powerful algorithm. They know who is interested, for example, in who wants to buy a business, who's entrepreneurial, who has the interest in things like business and entrepreneurship. So the key is you want to make sure that you're putting that you're targeting and you're leveraging the targeting tools that Facebook offers, so that when you're uploading and you're launching your Facebook campaign, you're leveraging those targeting tools and taking advantage of their algorithm. And like I mentioned earlier, Facebook has its own targeting tools, and you can also use some of your own. For all of our clients, we use something called a lookalike list, and we have a list of 45,000 individuals who own a business. And so for our franchise clients, of course, that's a very powerful database. We're able to upload that into Facebook, and then Facebook's algorithm looks for people who look like that and have similar interests to the people that are on our list. And I think it's that kind of targeting that can be the difference between a successful campaign or one that just throws out a lot of leads, but but the leads are not productive.
Can we talk about that for a second? Let's jump into this. Lookalike list concept isn't new and isn't exclusive to Facebook, but I've heard from several people who I would definitely trust that this is probably one of the better lookalike list tools to create hyper targeting you can use. So how if I let's say I'm a franchisor and I said, hey, I want to start using Facebook, how on earth would I use a lookalike audience? Do I just take a list of the people that come into my store that are, my client list, or do I need to look at something a little more specific to create a decent lookalike audience?
Great question. So Facebook calls it first party data, and
Mhm.
actually all of the platforms call it first party data. And first party data is exactly what you just defined. It is your customers. It's what your customers basically who they are and what their interests are and what their demographics are. And when you upload it to Facebook in this particular instance, and other platforms also have a lookalike option like LinkedIn and Google, but Facebook really does it the best. What I like to call their machine learning is the most powerful. The key, of course, is to have a large enough list where that your lookalike program and your targeting be effective. So you want to have at least 1,000 in the database. Our list is 45,000. We think we have the best list in the industry.
Hmm.
We've been right now, we're running over 60 campaigns using Facebook. We've had tremendous success across all the campaigns, and we use our lookalike list for every single campaign that we're running. And again, the idea, if you've got 45,000 people who own a business, there's demographics and it's their interests that Facebook is going to be looking to match. Say, okay, I'm going to find other people that look like these people, and I'm going to put the ads in front of those individuals. And I think this becomes really critical, irregardless of what kind of franchise opportunity that you have. If you have a mature brand, a brand that people might know, the lookalike audience, obviously very powerful. If you have a brand that's emerging,
Mhm.
not that many people will know about it. Again, your ad is going to be put in front of people who are interested in either adding to their financial portfolio, adding to a current business that they have, or start a new business.
Mhm. Yeah, that's interesting. This lookalike concept is I find very powerful. It's one of the things I was hoping we'd talk about a little bit today, David. So thanks for bringing it up. Let's talk about. Can we talk about the what if around this from the negative perspective? So what does Facebook lead generation look like if you don't have a lookalike audience? How is the behavior different from the back end of the platform versus having the lookalike? Would you mind delineating?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Dave. So if you're not using a lookalike audience or the right kind of first party data, then what you're going to do is you're going to use Facebook's targeting tools. Now, Facebook's targeting tools are pretty good. I mean, you can target certain kind of interest groups.
Mhm.
I think the problem is that a lot of times when you're targeting interest groups, if you don't know what interest groups actually to target, and you go too broad, you're going to bring out maybe a bunch of leads in that are not very, very productive. And you're going to fill your top of the funnel, as you had mentioned earlier, with some leads that are of poor quality. So to make sure that when you're leveraging those tools, that you're targeting the right kind of people
Mhm.
that you believe would be good potential franchise candidates.
Yeah, I think that's where I see. I've seen some mistakes made in the past because the leads flow into us, so we get to kind of see. But when you can do great Facebook campaigns and you can target demographic, a little bit of psychographic information, it's kind of eerie how much you can target, but not knowing how to crack the code, it's kind of a little bit of a give and take, learn by mistake approach. At least that's how I see it. And so you might start generating a ton of leads, but you're gonna have to very carefully monitor those if you don't have great targeting, because the quality is a little suspect. So a lot of minutia goes into trying to qualify, disqualify, figure out why that list isn't working well. You need a very short feedback loop with your team, and then you've got to adjust and adjust.
Absolutely, Dave. And this is like why we like Facebook Messenger so much. Now, there's 150 million people that use Facebook Messenger. I think it's kind of a hidden secret. But the beauty of Facebook Messenger is it provides an opportunity to pre-qualify. So if people who don't know about Facebook Messenger, people who know it, know that when you open Facebook Messenger, then a conversation can start. And what we've been able to do is we've been able to use our tool, Sales Chats, to start that conversation by asking a couple of pre-qualifying questions to the prospect before we send that alert off and say to the salesperson, hey, there's a hot prospect here. Let's begin that chat. Let's begin that conversation, which is really what clearly sales is all about. It's about engagement. And we believe it's about starting that engagement as quickly as possible. So there's Facebook lead ads, which I mentioned earlier, where somebody's filling out a form, but then there's that 150 million people using Facebook Messenger, a very, very powerful tool. And I think running a little bit under the radar, maybe, especially in the franchising world, but not for our clients.
Yeah. And using that as a way to pre-qualify before the lead comes to you. This is when some folks on this podcast may not be as familiar with the term like lower funnel or down in the funnel, but all that we're referring to is when you've got a bunch of leads coming through at the very top level of your lead marketing funnel. Often they're interested or they're curious, but they're not really qualified. So we're just talking about qualifying them, getting them further down the funnel to the point of making a decision. And this is why what you're talking about, David, is so powerful. Is if it's not done, let's say in app, and this is the powerful part about what I see you're doing is as soon as you leave a platform, so somebody's engaging with you on Facebook, and then you have them fill out a form, then you engage them off platform. The engagement rates are going to drop a little bit because trust goes down. But if you can engage them in app, meaning Messenger is actually an in-app engagement tool in Facebook. The engagement rates stay high because that's what they're doing. They're on their phone and they're now engaging with you on Messenger versus on Facebook, or they're on their PC and they're engaging you on Messenger. They haven't left the platform yet. So engagement tends to go up higher. And that gives you the ability now to reach them faster and then pre-qualify, disqualify without your salesperson with his or her limited time or sales team with their limited time having to invest effort into the pre-qualification effort. That's a big part of the franchise sales effort. I've never been in an industry where there's so much disqualification happening with leads. I mean, the conversion rates are abysmal compared to other industries, which means that's a lot of wasted human capital, unless you're using a tool like this, right? So tell us a little bit, David, more about, so if you're not using sales chats, like, can you still connect into the messenger? And then what does that require? Because I think that people still might want to do it, whether or not they're going to use the sales chats tool or something similar, if there is something similar, like how else do they engage?
Yeah, the challenge with using Messenger and not adding on sales chats is one of the reasons why we developed sales chats to begin with, is because you have to babysit Messenger. So if somebody opens up your ad in Messenger, if somebody's not watching the chat, they'll miss the whole process, and then they just wasted a bunch of money. With sales chats, we send the alerts, so the salesperson knows that there's a live one, and then that conversation actually leaves Messenger, and now that conversation's happening right on our platform. But to answer your question, there can be a challenge with Messenger if you're not, I like to call it, babysitting, and saying, oh, wait a minute, somebody's communicating with me, or if you miss it, Facebook only has a 24-hour, they have a 24-hour rule. So if you don't communicate with them within 24 hours, you lost them completely. So you need to make sure you have the controls in place in order to successfully drive engagement using Messenger. I also wanted to point out something else, Dave, and I think this is maybe a little bit more for the future, and that's WhatsApp. There's 75 million users in the US with WhatsApp. I think, sometimes we think that is an international tool, and of course it is. But I think one thing we're going to be seeing in the next 12 months is there could be a major marketing effort with WhatsApp. I know we obviously pay very close attention what's going on with Facebook. And I was even reading this weekend that expect some improvements to the advertising platform for WhatsApp. Now, we're excited about that because we do a lot of advertising using Facebook lead ads, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger, and now WhatsApp. So I don't want to bring that up because I think that's going to be something kind of exciting. Well, it's exciting for me anyway. We live in, and breathe this stuff.
Yeah, well, it's exciting. It's also terrifying, right? In my mind. It's because I've used WhatsApp. I've used it for managing baseball teams or communicating with C's or whatever the case may be. But the reason I say it's terrifying is because it's just yet another channel, right? The fewer channels you have to monitor, the better. The more channels, the more problematic, and the more likely you are to miss stuff, right? So I think that's a word of caution to folks as you're looking at this: is you've got to make sure you've got something that can automate at least notifications, if nothing else. If you're going to start getting into more and more platforms, it's one reason why, admittedly, like our company doesn't have a strong Facebook presence, or we don't use that platform effectively today. So I'm taking notes here, guys, as well. But it's because human capital is being used to monitor lots of other channels and engagement strategies. And so I've just said, hey, we're not gigantic. Let's not bite off more than we can chew and try to be everywhere at once. Let's be in the places we know we can have the best ROI, and then we'll start to expand into those channels as we have resources to monitor. Unless, of course, we automate that process. So just so you guys know how I look at it, but that's limiting. It's a little limiting. So you just have to be cautious. Like great tools, just make sure you're monitoring, because the expectation of someone sends you an email is, they expect a response, usually same day. If somebody calls you, they usually expect you to pick up now and call them back, usually within an hour, half an hour, right? Like as we changed media, the expectation of responsiveness goes down. If somebody texts you, and now if you're 18, this is very different, as I'm learning. If they don't respond back in like 3 minutes, then there's a problem. You should be worried about it. That's not how I look at texting, but I do expect somebody to get back to me a little faster via text message, right? But now when you get into the chat world, it's even shorter, right? It's, that's why there's that 24-hour cutoff. You need to make sure that you're adhering to the social expectations. If I get on a chat on your website and I message you, and then an hour later you respond, I've been gone for 55 minutes.
Or you're talking to a competitor, someone who has responded immediately. I mean, we've looked at this, of course, and we found that if you get back to somebody within a minute, that the close rate goes up 500%. If you get back to it, people expect that now. They expect you're going to get back to them right away and not wait 2 or 3 days. And unfortunately, in the sales funnel, sometimes, we'll let some of that drip campaign or some of that email go out, like you were saying, and then after they've learned a little bit about our brand, we'll get back to them. And we're saying, yeah, you got to do that. You got to use client tether to do all things, for sure. I mean, the CRM is obviously the anchor to the client, relationship, managing that relationship, but adding on this additional application where you can engage with someone immediately, I think is going to, we know is going to significantly increase conversion rate. And that's what sales is all about. I want to bring up one other thing, Dave, about the whole Facebook platform. I mean, sometimes you hear, we use Facebook, it doesn't work, or nobody's on Facebook. I did mention there's 240 million people on Facebook, and there's several hundred million people on Instagram, and 150 million on Messenger, 75 million on WhatsApp. But my point is this, that Facebook does skew older. Their demographics do skew a little bit older. So when you add the right targeting with this kind of demographic, you're going to put your message in front of, people who have money and people who are looking to
Mhm.
do something different. If they're entrepreneurial, if they're nervous about possibly being laid off and they're looking to make an investment in a business, or they already have a business, they want to add another business, or they're looking to invest some of their financial portfolio in a franchise. So who are those people? Well, those are people that are 35 plus, 35 to 64, that have the money to invest in these opportunities. The key is making sure you're putting your message in front of those people. So and knowing how to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. I was looking at that data a while ago. The usually you don't want to be on TikTok trying to find someone to buy a franchise, right? You got to understand now. TikTok's a great platform. There's so many people on it, right? It's the most popular social platform today. Is it the platform that you're going to find your demographic engaging? Well, if you're trying to engage people 45 plus, maybe not. Maybe not. They'll be on there. They'll be on there as participants, passive participants, but they're not going to be engaging in the platform as much as your 14 to 25-year-old people. And so I'm glad you brought up the demographic, because if you're selling franchises, you're not selling to 15 to 25-year-olds. You're looking at a more mature audience with more means. Same with
And we get that regularly on the FranDev side. How about TikTok? How about Reddit? Maybe we should try those. How about LinkedIn? And we can clearly talk about that. LinkedIn does, we had some success with that. I'm sure many of your clients have success with LinkedIn, but the audiences are a lot smaller. So the engagement is much tighter, but the leads are high quality. Google obviously is a very, very productive platform, but the leads can be expensive. And you need to make sure you have the right kind of budget to succeed using Google, which of course is an intent-based platform. So so you're driving traffic through keywords and bidding on keywords and so forth. Facebook is an audience-based platform, and so it's preference-based. It's what your interests are. It's Facebook basically categorizing through its machine learning in terms of what you like, what you've told Facebook you like when you're on it. So when it's time to advertise, they know exactly what ad to put in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little eerie, but it's powerful, right? How much they know about you. I've always wanted to peel back the layers and peek at my profile from their perspective. Well, what do you think I'm into? But I'm sure it'd be a little unnerving to see how closely they got me pegged, right? Like one of those personality assessments. Let's shift gears, David. So there are a couple of different audiences that can and probably should be looking at this as a way to generate leads. One of the groups that you and I have chatted about before is brokers. Do you want to share just a little bit about? Okay, we've talked about maybe more of the franchisors, or maybe even FSOs, right? That are doing high level franchise development for a brand or for multiple brands. Obviously, a great fit here doing Facebook marketing. How would you envision a broker's engagement strategy would vary, or how parallel would it be to that of a franchisor that's trying to sell a brand?
Well, one of the advantages that brokers have is that in most cases they have a wide variety of brands that they're representing.
Mm.
And my thought is that a broker should look at their breadth of offerings and identify 2 or 3 that they know have high interests.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can create on Facebook something called a carousel ad, which basically will show various images
Mm-hmm.
from more than one product. So I think that a broker should start with looking at the products that they represent, identify 2 or 3 that they know will drive the traffic, as opposed to making the ad about themselves. I think, and again, this is based on testing. The thought might be, well, I'll just say, hey, listen, I'll help you, the broker communicating, I'll help you find the right business, like a matchmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a logic to that. But if your budget is limited and you're looking for the highest quality lead, The smarter approach is to go brand first,
Hmm.
and then your ability to provide this value-added service second, once you begin to engage with the prospect.
That's interesting. I can see the logic behind that, actually, 100%. I don't know a lot of brokers that do that. Often it's about them. They're trying to advertise their own value, and this is why I'm unique as a broker in my approach. So I think that's a really good piece of advice. I just
Yeah,
want
let me piggyback on that, Dave. So
Yeah.
so here's why the brand tends to work, because when somebody's online and they're considering investing in a franchise brand, they can learn, of course, everything they need to know about a brand. So they're going to see a brand they might be interested in, and even if they click and fill out a form, they're still going to go to the website and they're going to learn about that brand, and there's clearly some, a lot of valuable information about all brands, mature, emerging, and what have you. As opposed to the challenge with trying to promote yourself on Facebook, which would take more money, basically.
Yeah.
So if your budget's limited, go brand first, broker second, you'll have more success.
And I feel like there might be some natural concerns there, David, about, well, if I do brand first, am I just going to push leads straight to the franchisor website and then lose the lead? Is that a traffic pattern that you see happen quite a bit, or do you find that if you can engage them in app, get them excited about that brand, then they start to message you, and so you keep them in app? Does that tend to create a higher conversion for the broker
Yeah,
specifically?
no, that's a great question. So of course, with sales chats, the leads are all going directly to the broker, and we're maintaining that relationship from the time they click on the ad all the way through the engagement when the broker takes over the relationship. But if you're not using our app, then when somebody is filling out a form using lead ads, of course, you're going to send that lead directly to yourself if you're a broker. And we find basically with lead ads that 90% of all the leads go to directly, let's use the broker as an example, directly to the broker, and not to the brand directly.
Okay.
There are a few that would go directly to the brand, but the broker will get the large majority of them.
Cool. That's actually really good data to know, because I think that's the fear. It's not fair for me to speak for the franchise broker community collectively, but I know that that's one of the concerns many of them share, which is why I want to talk about brands first. But if I do, then I'm just going to funnel my marketing dollars and channel people directly over to these brands, and I'll never know about it. So I can't capitalize on that. But to know that 90% of them will engage the form
Absolutely.
on Facebook, that's really powerful data to make sure people are aware of.
That's
Cool.
been our experience, yes.
That's great. And 10% will slough off, and that's okay, because frankly, 90% of any number is pretty solid. So 9 out of 10 come your way. That's good news. What about if we take a step back, because we've talked a lot about targeting and how the platform works. Let's get practical for a minute and talk about budgets, right? So if maybe a top level strategy discussion, you're the right guy for this discussion, David. So let's say I'm an emerging brand, or I'm a developing brand, or even a broker. I'm sure they'll have slightly different nuances, but how do I start building a Facebook marketing strategy? Like, what are the first steps?
You mean, Dave, you mean specifically how much money should you, basically the client or the broker budget for a successful campaign? What should they be looking at? Is that your question?
That's a key part of it. Yeah. So let's talk about the budgeting side of it. Like, what would
Budgeting
be,
first, sure.
and then also maybe lay out a couple other steps of, okay, these are other things you need to have lined up so that this will be effective. Because you can just start spending money on Facebook tomorrow. If you don't have the right strategy behind it, it's not going to yield the results you would expect.
Absolutely. So let's start with budgeting. So, I mean, if you're a single brand and again, depending upon, I mean, it always starts with how many units do you want to sell? I mean, that's how we like to always start the conversation. And then let's kind of think it through from there. If it costs somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 for every franchise that you're going to sell, you can kind of start to figure out over a year how much, depending on how many units you want to sell, how much you should be spending budget wise. But that's very much a kind of a top down kind of a strategy. I want to sell 5. So, and I think that's going to cost me about, let's just use these numbers, 10 grand a sale. So my budget should be 50 grand. So that's and those numbers are consistent across most brands, emerging brands and brands that have 100 units or more. And that's a number you'll always hear kicked around in franchise marketing conversations. We like to use the number $3,000 a month if you're a single brand to spend on Facebook advertising. And again, it always ties back to how many units the franchisor is looking to sell. They're looking to sell 3 to 5 units, and they're spending $3,000 a month. Boom, that's probably going to get them, again, depending upon their funnel strategy, get them to where they want to go. Now, brokers usually have more limited budgets, so we sort of recommend for a broker to test $500 to $1,000 a month regarding, and again, it's brand first, broker second. So if they're the right kind of brands, that they should be able to have some success driving some leads. Cost per lead on Facebook is something everybody always asks about. And again, that ties back to how much money you should spend. You might want to think about budgeting. So, we're looking, somewhere between $50 and $125 a lead, again, depending upon the brand, and also depending upon geographically where you're targeting. So obviously there's some states that are stronger from a franchising perspective than others. If you're already in Florida, if you're targeting Florida and Texas only, for example, you can have a lot, more luck driving leads. If you're lucky enough to be approved in California, you're going to do really, really well in that state, driving leads. So those are some of the criteria you want to think about when you're planning. What else should you be thinking about? We touched on targeting. So that's a really key component. Creative and messaging is key. So with Facebook, you can run static ads, carousel ads, and video ads. If you have a really strong video and it's a testimonial kind of a video, those are always the most effective. You want to keep your videos under a minute. Most people watch for 10 seconds, then they decide if they want to fill out the form or they want to engage with sales chats within 10 to 20 seconds or not, or then they're going to jump off. So we find that the right kind of video can be wildly productive. A horrible video will kill you. So you want to make sure you have something that people are really going to engage with. Carousel ads, I mentioned, you can have multiple still images through a carousel ad, and then a static ad, of course, is just a single banner ad, and that is those are the things that you need to be thinking about from a formatting, at least a perspective, and a design perspective.
Yeah. So design, excuse me, makes or breaks the campaign. Doesn't matter how effective your targeting is. If your ad design isn't effective, then you're going to expect to see a less than optimal conversion rate. And
your messaging needs to be key. There needs to be a point of difference that you're clearly communicating. I mean, look, at the bottom line here is that when somebody's considering investing in a franchise, they want to know a few things. They want to know, am I going to make money? Now, some franchisors can talk about AUV, some can't. Some have that data, some don't. If you have it, use it for sure. And then, of course, indicate the item 19 asterisk, in the ad. But, do I think I can make money at this? I think that is the single most powerful message that you can communicate in any kind of franchise ad. Also, the other thing is, what's my point of difference? That absolutely has to be clear. People need to understand what the franchisor does and how it differentiates from your competition and other franchises. Also, do I think there's an opportunity to grow? I mean, one of the great things about emerging brands is it's a huge growth opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
They may have only have a few franchise, maybe under 20, that have been sold or that are open. So do I think that so if I'm the prospect, I'm looking at that, do I think this is a hot category? Do I think I might be able to grow with this company? And if you can communicate those kind of things in your ad, like a billboard, then you're gonna drive leads.
Awesome. That's great advice. I know, David, we're a little short on time now, so let's take a kind of a summary approach. You've given us tons of great data about the platform itself, why use it, other ancillary things we should be paying attention to, Instagram, Messenger, especially WhatsApp. What kind of budget should I be looking at spending? What other types of tools can we plug in, like a sales chats, to streamline the conversion from top of funnel to mid to low funnel? Those things are powerful. What other words of advice would you kind of wrap up with today? And I'm just going to leave the mic in your hands to close up today. For somebody who's considering or needs to revamp their Facebook campaigns, what else should they be looking at to make sure they're optimizing those campaigns?
Well, one thing I always recommend is if you're not using, well, even if you are using an agency like mine, you always want to test. You want to and you want to constantly be learning. I mean, one of the beauties of Facebook is, you can run A/B tests on Facebook for sure. You run them all the time, and to try to see which ad is more effective. But also the way their algorithm works is, if you put two ads up and you're running one ad against another, Facebook's going to tell you pretty quickly what's working and what's not. Their algorithm basically is going to drive the traffic to the ad that is that's working better. So it is important to do the testing. It is important to run a couple of ads or run multiple campaigns so that you can learn as much as possible. So as you increase your budget, you're spending wisely.
Yeah, that's great. And refreshing that, reviewing it regularly, because I'm the type of guy that would turn it on and forget it and move on. But you've got to be actively monitoring the data, or else you're not going to be learning and adapting, and then maybe figuring out what was different between the ads, and then trying to take that one level further than doing new A/B testing, right? To see if you can enhance upon the performance with a new alteration. That's golden. David, you've been fantastic. Really appreciate you sharing these insights and giving everyone kind of an idea of how can they open up this channel as they're trying to get smarter about their marketing spends in 2023. This is a great time for people to be thinking about improving their Facebook marketing, or starting if they're not already. So thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you very much, Dave. I appreciate it.
Thank you.